Hello again, everyone. Continuing with Phoenix Week, I'm going to talk about the Arizona Coyotes of the NHL today. Looking at the Coyotes, they do possess the number 3 overall pick in the upcoming draft. That obviously comes on the back of a 24-50-8 record this past season. They were in line to have the number 2 pick, but after the draft lottery, the Oilers have now got the number 1 pick, Buffalo Sabres have number 2, and now the Coyotes have the number 3. So we'll see what they do with that. They were very active at the trade deadline. When they traded Vermette, they got defenseman Dahl back as well as a first-round pick in this upcoming draft. They also traded away Keith Yandle on a 4th-round pick for Moore, Duclair, a conditional first-round pick in 2016, and a second-round pick in this upcoming draft. But their biggest trade, I think, happened way back on January 14th when they traded away their goaltender Devin Dubnyk for a 3rd-round pick. If it wasn't for Dubnyk going to Minnesota, I don't think the Wild would have made the playoffs or at least made a deep playoff run like they have. I know right now it's in the second round, and they're kind of on the heels of getting swept by the Blackhawks. But without Dubnyk, I don't think they make the playoffs. I don't think they make the second round. And now Dubnyk's also a Vezina finalist. So, not sure how much Arizona is going to be kicking themselves for letting Dubnyk go. Even if he was on the team, who knows if they would have made the playoffs. And when you do look at the draft kind of thing, you do get a 3rd-round pick for Dubnyk. And when it comes to goaltenders, you don't see too many goaltenders taken in the 1st or 2nd round. But I don't think they're going to go in the 3rd round and draft a goaltender to replace a guy like Dubnyk. And you're not going to replace a Vezina finalist through the draft. But they did acquire a lot of those picks, and maybe they can package some of those picks together to find a goaltender through a trade, through free agency. Maybe they can find a goaltender. When you look at the elite teams out there, it's because they have an elite goaltender, like the Carey Prices, like the Pecorines, like the Devin Dubnyks, and they may have backup goaltenders who don't get a lot of game action because if you're Carey Price, they're going to want to put you in as often as they can. So your backup goaltender might only see 10, 12 games a season, but in those 10, 12 games he plays really well, then maybe he deserves a shot to be a starting goaltender for another team, and that's when you can find a way to get rid of your backup goaltender and acquire some picks. As good as Price is, teams do still have to have a solid backup because your number 1 goaltender isn't going to be able to play all 82 games. But you can find a way to get another solid backup who can play 10, 12 games kind of thing. And even if your backup in those 10, 12 games goes 6-6 or something, that's going to be fine. So maybe if you get rid of your backup, give him an opportunity to be a starter and the guy for another team. Because I don't think Smith is the guy for Phoenix. If they think he can be the guy to get them to the playoffs, then that's not going to happen. I don't think. When you look at this past year, 14, 42, and 5, 3.16 GAA, 904 save percentage in 62 games played. So his save percentage, as I've said in the past, if you want to be an NHL goaltender, you got to have a 900 save percentage, bare minimum. 904 is okay, but his GAA at 3.16 is about one point too high. When you look at the elite goaltenders, their GAAs are closer to around the 2 mark. And that's what you require out of your goaltender if you want to be successful. Now, with the 900 plus save percentage kind of thing, you have to look at that 3.16 GAA. How many of those goals were his fault, and how many of them were the defense being out of position, breakaways, 5-on-3 power plays? All those things obviously come into effect when you look at a GAA being so elevated. But if your goaltender does have a 3.16 GAA, that's requiring your team to go out and try to at least score 4 goals a night if you want to win. And teams can score 4 goals a night, not consistently. I think that's way too much to ask of a team. If your team can go out and get 2-3 goals a night, I think that's manageable, and that's what should be expected out of an NHL caliber team and NHL talent, is that you can go out and get 2-3 goals. But if your goaltender has a 3.16 GAA, you're gonna require more out of your team to get there. So we'll see what happens with their goaltending situation. I'll talk about the defense now. They do have a very young defense. The 6 guys I'm going to mention, Campbell is the oldest of them, and he was born in '88. Campbell just had 1 assist this past year, but he also only played in 33 games. Dahlback, obviously a guy they picked up in that trade. He was the 3rd-round pick back in 2011. He had 1 goal and 3 assists in 23 games played. Then you have Ekman-Larsson, who was the 6th overall pick back in '09, who had a 23-goal, 20 assist season. So I think he can be the cornerstone of a defense, especially in Phoenix. He's still a young guy. He was only drafted back in '09, and I think he can be a solid number 1, number 2 defenseman on any NHL roster, and I think Phoenix will be happy to have his skills and his talents for the next few years. Moore, obviously, a guy they picked up in a trade. He was the 21st overall pick back in '09. He had 2 goals and 9 assists in 57 games played. Then you have Murphy, who was the 20th overall pick back in 2011. He had 4 goals, 3 assists, and then Stone had 3 goals and 15 assists. Those are the 6 defensemen that I'm going to mention. Like I said, the oldest one of them, Campbell, was born in '88. Murphy was born in '93. Dahlback, Larson in '91, and then Moore and Stone were born in 1990. So young defense. Like I said, I think Ekman-Larsson can be a solid number 1, number 2 defenseman. I think all the other guys I mentioned are good 4, 5, 6 defensemen. I do think they need to find a defenseman that can be a number 2, number 3 kind of defenseman who can get in on some power plays, be a little more of an offensive presence on the defensive end. So we'll see what happens with that. With that number 3 pick, it's going to be interesting. I think we all know McDavid's going number 1 to the Edmonton Oilers, but I think what Buffalo does with their number 2 pick is going to ultimately decide what Arizona does with theirs. If Buffalo doesn't draft Eichel, then maybe the Coyotes do. The Coyotes are going to have an opportunity at Strome if Buffalo doesn't draft him. I think the draft is going to be interesting because so much hype and talk has been around McDavid that whoever the 5th overall pick is, I'm not even going to know his name, to be honest with you, because I don't follow OHL, I don't follow AHL a heck of a lot. To be fair, I'll be honest with that. So that's why McDavid's been all over the place, but I think that's the case for a lot of people, is McDavid's been the guy everybody's talking about. So you're going to get down to the 10th overall pick, who's a top 10 pick, and who's this guy? Oh, his name's not McDavid, or Eichel, or Strome. Okay. This kind of thing is at least how I'm going to look at it. So I think they got a great pick with that number 3 pick, and they're going to find a guy that can produce for them, whether it's a defenseman or forward. We'll see what happens. When you look at their forwards, Shane Doan, obviously, he does turn 39 in October. He had 14 goals and 22 assists this past year. Gagner, who was 6th overall pick back in '07, had 15 goals, 26 assists. Hansel, unfortunately, only played in 37 games, but he had 8 goals and 16 assists in those 37 games. So if he played a full season, he could have easily been a 20-goal scorer for them. You have Ryder, who's a young guy, born in '93, who had 13 goals and 8 assists this past year. So we'll see how he further develops. Then you also have Arco Bello, who had 17 goals, 14 assists. He played on 4 different teams this past year, so if he can find some stability and consistency with the Coyotes, I think he can be a good player to have in your forward core and on the ice. And then the 8th overall pick back in '08, Bodker. He had 14 goals, 14 assists, but unfortunately he only played in 45 games. So again, if he plays a full season, you could easily have a 30-goal scorer in Bodker there. So they have guys on this team. They got some veteran presence with Gagner and Hansel. Erat, they also have on their team. He had 9 goals, 23 assists this past year. And then they got some young guys, like I said, with Bodker, who was just drafted back in '08. Ryder, who was just born in '93. So we'll see what happens with that 3rd overall pick. It's, do they draft a forward or do they draft a defenseman? It's going to be all what they think is going to be best impact for their team. When you have the number 3 overall pick, you're going to want to draft a guy who's NHL ready. I don't think you draft a guy with the number 3 pick who, okay, well, he can play in the OHL this year, then he'll play in the AHL for another season, and then he'll probably be on our opening day roster for the 2019 season. I don't think you do that. I think you find a guy who's NHL ready now, and whether that's Eichel, whether that's Strome, whether that's a guy that's playing over in Europe, it'll be interesting to see what they do. So good luck to the Coyotes with the draft. Good luck with the offseason. Hopefully they can find a goaltender. Hopefully they can find some pieces, and we can see the Coyotes make the playoffs this upcoming year. Thank you again all for watching. Again, you can follow me on Twitter at GHAM614. I'll be talking to you again next week. Bye.